The CEO's daughter refused to speak until the single dad janitor sang her late mother's song, and in that silent hallway, a broken child whispered her first word in years, exposing a secret so powerful it could tear apart the richest family in the city. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Daniel pushed his cart down the quiet hallway of Brightwell Technologies' executive floor, his rubber-soled work shoes squeaking against the polished marble with each deliberate step. The late afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows that lined the corridor, casting long, geometric shadows across the elegant space. The light caught the dust motes dancing in the air, creating tiny galaxies that drifted through the silence. He tucked his phone into his pocket after finishing the call with Evan, the warmth of his son's voice still echoing in his mind. "Study hard, son," he whispered to himself, a small smile crossing his tired face. His boy was growing up too fast, already talking about college applications and career paths with the kind of serious determination that made Daniel's heart swell. The thought made his chest tighten with equal parts pride and worry. Pride at the young man Evan was becoming. Worry about how they'd afford the dreams his son deserved to chase. The cleaning cart's left front wheel had developed a slight wobble over the months, creating a rhythmic thump squeak as he pushed it along the pristine hallway. Daniel made a mental note to dig through his toolbox later and see if he could tighten the axle. He couldn't afford to replace the whole cart on his salary, but he could at least minimize the noise that seemed to echo louder in these hushed corporate halls. In this pristine environment where everything was sleek and perfect, even the smallest imperfection felt magnified, like a crack in expensive china. He paused at the supply closet, its metal door reflecting the amber light from the windows. Taking inventory had become second nature. Paper towels running low, cleaning solution nearly empty, fresh rags needed restocking. The familiar routine helped quiet his restless mind, the way counting sheep might calm a troubled sleeper. The evening shift wouldn't officially start for another hour, but these extra minutes of preparation meant extra pay. Every dollar counted toward Evan's college fund, growing slowly but steadily in the savings account that had become Daniel's obsession. The sound of voices drifted down the corridor like whispers in a library, unusual for this time of day when most executives had already escaped to their suburban homes and weekend plans. Daniel recognized CEO Victoria Hale's authoritative tone before he saw her, that crisp pronunciation that spoke of expensive education and years of commanding boardrooms. "Just for a couple of hours, sweetheart. You can sit in my office and draw while I finish these quarterly reports." Victoria's voice carried a hint of strain beneath its usual confidence, like a violin string wound, just a little too tight. "I know it's not ideal, but Mrs. Chen called in sick, and I can't leave you alone at home." Daniel kept his head down, focusing intently on counting cleaning supplies as footsteps approached on the marble floor. From the corner of his eye, he caught glimpses of Victoria's elegant figure in a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Daniel made in a month. Her hand rested protectively on the shoulder of a small girl who seemed to float beside her like a shadow. The child, Lily, he remembered hearing her name whispered in break-room conversations, clutched a worn sketchbook to her chest like a shield against the world. Victoria guided her daughter toward the executive office suite, her heels clicking a steady rhythm against the floor. "Sarah will bring you some hot chocolate from the executive kitchen, the kind with the little marshmallows you like. Would you like that, sweetheart?" No response came from the little girl, just the soft whisper of her small feet moving across the polished stone. Daniel had heard the whispered stories that circulated among the cleaning staff, how Lily hadn't spoken a single word since her father's death 2 years ago, how the once chatty child had retreated into a silence so complete it worried doctors and therapists alike. His heart ached with recognition, remembering how Evan had withdrawn after losing his mother, though his son's grief had never reached this profound depth of silence. As Victoria disappeared into her corner office, with a phone already pressed to her ear and the weight of corporate responsibility settling back on her shoulders, Lily lingered in the hallway like a lost bird. She drifted toward the supply closet where Daniel worked, her small fingers trailing along the smooth wall as she walked, tracing invisible patterns that only she could see. Daniel continued his methodical task, careful not to make any sudden movements that might startle her. He had learned this caution from years of caring for Evan during his most fragile moments. How grief could make a person skittish as a wild animal, ready to flee at the first sign of intrusion. Without thinking, he began humming softly, an old habit that made the mundane work feel lighter, more bearable. The melody was as familiar as his own heartbeat. The lullaby his wife had written when Evan was small, born from sleepless nights and desperate love. The simple tune filled the quiet space between them, weaving through the golden light that slanted through the windows. Daniel lost himself in the bittersweet memories that always accompanied this song. Sarah at their old upright piano, her long chestnut hair falling forward like a curtain as she worked out the melody on the yellowed keys. Baby Evan finally drifting off to sleep in his crib as she sang, his tiny fists unclenching for the first time in hours. The three of them snuggled together on the worn couch while she patiently taught Daniel the words, her voice wrapping around them like a blanket. A small movement in his peripheral vision caught his attention, gentle as a leaf falling. Lily had edged closer to the supply closet doorway, her dark eyes wide and fixed on him with an intensity that made his breath catch. The sketchbook was clutched even tighter against her chest, her knuckles white with the effort. But her expression had shifted from the blank withdrawal he'd glimpsed before to something like focused hunger, as if she were trying to capture something precious that might slip away. The setting sun had deepened to rich orange and purple hues, painting the corridor in warm light that made the marble glow like honey. The colors backlit Lily's small figure, creating a halo effect around her dark hair that made her seem almost ethereal. She stood perfectly still in the doorway, like a deer that had wandered into a clearing and might bolt at the slightest unexpected sound. Daniel continued his gentle humming, his movements slow and deliberate as he folded fresh cleaning rags into neat stacks, each motion careful and unthreatening. Something in the girl's face reminded him powerfully of Evan in those dark days after Sarah's death. That same lost look in her eyes, that desperate hunger for something familiar to hold on to when the world had shifted beneath their feet. The recognition hit him like a physical blow, memories flooding back of his own son's silent tears and the way music had been the first thing to reach him through the fog of grief. Daniel let the melody grow slightly stronger, watching from his peripheral vision as Lily took another small step forward, drawn by something she couldn't name. The last rays of sunlight streamed through the windows, creating long shadows that stretched across the marble floor between them like bridges waiting to be crossed. Daniel reached for another stack of supplies from his cart, still humming the gentle tune that had soothed his own child through so many dark nights, that had been Sarah's final gift to their family. The melody hung in the air between them, simple and pure, carrying with it all the love and loss and hope that had shaped its creation. Daniel could feel the weight of the moment, the delicate balance of grief and healing that seemed to shimmer in the space around them like heat waves. Then it happened. A whisper so soft he almost missed it, barely more than a breath given shape. Again. The cleaning rag slipped from Daniel's startled hands, landing in a soft heap at his feet like a fallen prayer. He stared at Lily, hardly daring to breathe or move, wondering if his longing to help this broken child had made him imagine that single, precious word. But there she stood in the doorway, still clutching her sketchbook like an anchor, her dark eyes locked on his face with an expression of such raw need that it made his chest tight. The setting sun painted her in shades of gold and amber, and for the first time in 2 years, Lily Hale had spoken. The silence that followed felt sacred, pregnant with possibility and fragile as spun glass. Daniel stared at the little girl standing in the doorway, her dark eyes wide and fixed on him. His cleaning rag lay forgotten on the floor between them. The word she'd spoken, again, hung in the air like a delicate soap bubble, too fragile to touch. Slowly, careful not to startle her, Daniel lowered himself to one knee. The girl clutched her sketchbook tighter against her chest, but didn't back away. Did you say something, sweetheart?" he asked softly. The click of heels against marble echoed through the hallway as Victoria Hale rushed forward, her normally composed face a mask of shock. "Lily?" She placed her hands on her daughter's shoulders, looking between her and Daniel with intense scrutiny. "Did she just speak?" Daniel nodded, still keeping his movements gentle. "She asked me to sing again. I was just humming while I worked." "What were you singing?" Victoria's voice was sharp, demanding. Just an old lullaby. My wife used to sing it." Daniel's throat tightened at the memory. "I sometimes hum it to help pass the time during my shift." Victoria's grip on Lily's shoulders loosened slightly. "My daughter hasn't spoken a word since—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "Since we lost her father in a car accident. 2 years ago." Daniel's heart clenched. He knew too well the weight of such loss. how it could silence even the brightest souls. Lily took a small step forward, her tiny hand reaching out to tug at his uniform sleeve. "Again?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Victoria's breath caught audibly. Daniel looked up at her, seeking permission. She nodded, her eyes glistening. Daniel cleared his throat and began singing softly, his voice carrying the gentle melody that had comforted his own family through countless nights. "Moonlight dancing on the sea, stars are singing just for thee. Close your eyes and drift away, till morning brings another day." Lily's grip on his sleeve tightened. Her other hand relaxed its death grip on the sketchbook, letting it hang loosely at her side. Victoria watched, one hand pressed to her mouth, as her daughter swayed slightly to the melody. When Daniel finished, Victoria quickly wiped her eyes. "Mr. Brooks. Daniel Brooks, ma'am." "Mr. Brooks, would you—" She paused, visibly collecting herself. "Would you mind staying near my office for the rest of my shift? I need to make some calls, but Lily—" She looked down at her daughter, who still hadn't let go of Daniel's sleeve. "Of course," Daniel said. "I can clean that section next." Victoria guided Lily toward her office, but the girl resisted, holding tight to Daniel's uniform. "Come," she whispered, tugging him along. Victoria's office was impressive, all glass and chrome with a stunning view of the city. Daniel felt out of place in his janitor's uniform, but Lily seemed determined to keep him close. She settled into a plush chair near her mother's desk, finally releasing his sleeve. "Mama," Lily whispered, making Victoria freeze in the act of reaching for her phone. "Song nice." Victoria sank into her chair, her usual CEO composure cracking. She covered her face with her hands for a moment, shoulders shaking slightly. When she looked up, her eyes were red but determined. "Mr. Brooks, I'll speak with your supervisor. For tonight, please stay within calling distance. I'll make arrangements for—" She stopped as Lily made a small distressed sound. "We'll figure something out." Daniel nodded, understanding both what was said and left unsaid. He gathered his cleaning supplies from the hallway and worked nearby, keeping the office door within sight. Occasionally, he would catch glimpses of Lily drawing in her sketchbook while Victoria made calls in hushed tones. The hours ticked by. Daniel cleaned every inch of that section twice over, not wanting to stray too far. When Victoria finally emerged from her office around 11, Lily was asleep in the chair, her sketchbook open on her lap. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly. "I don't understand what happened here tonight, but—" She looked at her sleeping daughter. This is the first time she's spoken since the accident, the first time she's seemed present. Daniel nodded, gathering his supplies. "I'm glad I could help, Mrs. Hale." Outside, the night air was cool against his face as he walked to his car. His hands shook slightly as he pulled out his phone and dialed Evan's number. The events of the evening felt almost dreamlike now. "Dad?" Evan answered on the third ring, sounding sleepy. "Hey, buddy, something amazing happened tonight." Daniel started his car, telling Evan about the little girl and the lullaby as he drove through the quiet streets. "Your mom's song, it reached her somehow." "Wow," Evan said softly. That's really something, Dad." Daniel pulled into their apartment complex just before midnight. He found Evan asleep on the couch, phone still in hand, homework spread across the coffee table. The sight was so familiar it made his heart ache, his son trying so hard to wait up for him, to be the man of the house. Daniel gently removed the phone from Evan's hand and draped a blanket over him. In the quiet darkness of their small apartment, he could still hear Lily's whispered "again" echoing in his mind, reminding him of the mysterious ways music could heal what words couldn't touch. Morning sunlight streamed through the small kitchen window of the Brooks apartment, catching dust motes in its golden beams. Daniel stood at the counter, mechanically going through the motions of making coffee while his mind wandered back to the previous night. The familiar gurgle of the coffee maker provided a steady backdrop to his thoughts. Across the scratched kitchen table, Evan spooned cereal into his mouth, his textbook propped open against the sugar bowl. His dark hair was still messy from sleep, reminding Daniel of how young he really was, despite trying to act so grown up all the time. "You're sure she just started talking, just like that?" Evan asked between bites, his voice carrying equal parts curiosity and concern for his father. Daniel nodded, pouring coffee into his thermos. "It was like the song unlocked something in her." He paused, remembering Lily's wide-eyed stare. She hadn't spoken in 2 years, according to her mother. "Mom's lullaby," Evan said softly, pushing his cereal bowl aside. "Do you think there's something special about it?" The question sparked something in Daniel's memory. He set his coffee down, suddenly animated. You know what? I think there might be some of your mom's old songwriting stuff in those boxes we never unpacked. The ones in the hall closet? Evan checked his watch. I've got 20 minutes before I need to catch the bus. Together they pulled out 3 dusty cardboard boxes from the back of the closet. The tape had gone yellow with age, but the boxes were still sealed. Neither of them had been ready to face these memories after she passed. Daniel's hands trembled slightly as he cut through the tape on the first box. Inside were notebooks, loose papers, and old composition books, all filled with his wife's flowing handwriting. The sight of it made his throat tight. Evan picked up a handful of papers, carefully sorting through them. Look at all these songs she wrote, he said, his voice full of wonder. I didn't know there were so many. Daniel rifled through the second box, finding more of the same, until something caught his eye. A single sheet of paper, more formally written than the others, with a proper title and date at the top, The Lullaby. His eyes scanned down the page, taking in the familiar words he'd sung so many times. But it was the bottom of the page that made his breath catch. There, in his wife's elegant script, was a dedication. To VH, my sister in every way but blood. May this melody always remind you of the family we chose. Dad? Evan leaned over, noticing his father's stillness. What is it? VH, Daniel said slowly, his mind working through the possibilities. Victoria Hale? Evan's eyes widened. You think Mom knew Lily's mom? I don't know. Daniel carefully folded the paper and slipped it into his shirt pocket. But I'm going to find out. Across town in a sunlit home office, Victoria Hale sat at her desk, surrounded by open tabs on her laptop and scattered papers. She'd been up most of the night researching selective mutism, trauma responses, and music therapy. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed her lack of sleep, but her posture remained perfect, a habit too ingrained to break. Lily sat in the window seat nearby, her ever-present sketchbook open in her lap. She hadn't spoken since the previous night, but something had changed. The rigid tension she usually carried in her shoulders had softened slightly. Sweetheart, Victoria called softly. Lily looked up, her dark eyes questioning. Would you like to hear some music while you draw? Lily considered this for a moment, then shook her head. She pointed to her throat, then made a gentle wave motion with her hand, their private sign language for the song. You want the lullaby? Victoria asked, her heart squeezing. Lily nodded. Victoria pulled out her phone and played a recording she'd made last night of Daniel singing. She'd done it discreetly, desperate to capture anything that might help her daughter. As the gentle melody filled the room, Lily's pencil began moving across the page. Nice, she whispered. So quietly Victoria almost missed it. Just that one word. But it was enough to bring tears to Victoria's eyes. She turned back to her research with renewed determination. There had to be a reason why this particular song had reached through her daughter's silence. Was it the melody? The rhythm? Or was there something about the janitor himself? The morning passed in a blur of phone calls and emails. Victoria arranged for her afternoon meetings to be held at the office. She couldn't bear the thought of being away from Lily right now, not when they might be on the verge of a breakthrough. She also made discreet inquiries about Daniel Brooks, learning that he'd been working at Brightwell Technologies for just over a year, always on the night shift. By early afternoon, Victoria had settled into her office at Brightwell, with Lily set up in the corner with her art supplies. The building was quiet at this hour, the transition time between the day and evening shifts. Through the glass walls, she saw Daniel Brooks approaching. He was early for his shift, dressed in his clean but worn uniform, carrying something in his hand. There was a determination in his step that made Victoria sit up straighter. She watched as he hesitated outside her office door, clearly debating with himself. The paper in his hand caught the light. It looked old, well-handled. Daniel took a deep breath, raised his hand to knock. Daniel's knuckles rapped softly against the glass door of Victoria's office. Through the clear panels, he could see her seated at her imposing mahogany desk, speaking to a wall of serious faces on the large monitor mounted on her wall. The board of directors, he assumed, noting their stern expressions and expensive suits. Victoria glanced up, her professional mask firmly in place. She held up one finger, then gestured for him to enter. Daniel slipped inside quietly, the lyric sheet feeling suddenly heavy in his hands. He took a seat in one of the leather chairs near the door, trying to make himself as unobtrusive as possible. As you can see from the quarterly projections, Victoria was saying, her voice steady and assured, Our new initiative has already shown promising results." She clicked through several slides of charts and graphs while Daniel waited, studying the office he usually only saw during his cleaning rounds. The space spoke of power and precision, everything exactly where it should be, from the perfectly aligned desk accessories to the carefully curated artwork. But there were touches of humanity too. Lily's drawings pinned to a corkboard, a small family photo faced away from visitors, a child's sweater draped over the back of a chair. "We'll reconvene after lunch to discuss the marketing strategy," Victoria concluded. "Thank you for your time." She pressed a button, and the screen went dark. For a moment, she remained still, as if gathering her thoughts. Then she turned to Daniel, her expression curious but guarded. "Mr. Brooks, what can I help you with?" Daniel stood, smoothing the wrinkled paper in his hands. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Hale. I found something this morning that I thought you should see." He approached her desk and carefully placed the lyric sheet before her. "The initials at the bottom, VH, I wondered if they might be yours." Victoria's perfectly maintained composure cracked. The color drained from her face as her fingers traced the familiar handwriting. "Sarah," she whispered, so softly Daniel almost missed it. "Sarah Brooks." "You knew my wife?" Daniel's voice caught in his throat. Victoria nodded slowly, still staring at the paper. "We were best friends in college, inseparable for those 4 years." Her fingers lingered on the dedication at the bottom. "She wrote this lullaby during our senior year. We used to joke that we were sisters separated at birth." A shadow passed across her face. "But after graduation, life took us in different directions. I got caught up in my career. She pursued her music. We lost touch." "She never mentioned," Daniel started, then stopped, processing this revelation. Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she looked up at him. "My late husband," she said, her voice tight with sudden understanding. "He told me he wrote this lullaby. He used to sing it to me when we were dating, said he composed it especially for me." Her fingers clenched around the paper. "He lied. He must have heard Sarah perform it somewhere and—" She closed her eyes, pain etching lines around her mouth. "He stole it." The weight of this revelation hung heavy in the air between them. Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the office door creaked open. Lily slipped in, her small face lighting up at the sight of Daniel. Without hesitation, she ran to him, her sketchbook clutched to her chest. Daniel automatically began to hum the familiar melody, the notes carrying even more meaning now. Lily tugged at his sleeve, her voice small but clear. "Sing the butterfly part?" Victoria's sharp intake of breath broke the moment. She stood, moving around her desk to kneel beside her daughter. "Lily, sweetheart," she said softly, wonder evident in her voice. "You're speaking to us?" Lily nodded, still holding onto Daniel's sleeve. Victoria looked up at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Mr. Brooks, Daniel, would you be willing to stay later today? I know it's asking a lot, but Lily—" She glanced at her daughter who had begun to hum the melody herself. "This is the most responsive she's been in 2 years." Daniel thought of Evan waiting at home, of the bills piling up on their kitchen table, of the extra hours of work he'd already planned to take on. But looking at Lily's hopeful face, he couldn't say no. "Of course," he said, "I can stay." Victoria's relief was palpable. "Thank you," she said, her professional mask completely gone now, replaced by something more vulnerable, more real. "We'll make sure you're compensated for the additional time." The rest of Daniel's shift stretched well past midnight. He cleaned the executive floor as usual, but every so often Lily would appear, asking in her quiet way for another verse of the lullaby. Each time she spoke, Victoria's eyes would light up with hope, as if watching a miracle unfold. When Daniel finally made it home, the lights were still on in their small apartment. Evan sat on their worn couch, his homework spread across the coffee table, though his textbook had slipped onto the floor. He looked up as Daniel entered, questions already forming on his face. "Dad, you're even later than yesterday. What's going on?" The morning sun cast long shadows across the cracked sidewalk as Daniel and Evan walked together. Fallen leaves crunched under their feet, and the autumn air held a crisp bite that made Daniel pull his worn jacket tighter around himself. He glanced at his son, noting the worried creases around Evan's eyes. "Dad," Evan began, adjusting his backpack strap, "you got home after midnight again last night. And the night before that." His voice carried a weight beyond his 16 years. "I know we need the money, but—" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "It's complicated, buddy. This situation with Lily, she's starting to speak again, and her mother needs help." But what about your health? You're barely sleeping anymore. Evan stopped walking, turning to face his father. I could get a part-time job after school. Maybe at the music store? They're always looking for help. Daniel's heart clenched at his son's offer. No, Evan. Your job is to focus on school. I'm managing just fine. He forced a smile, though exhaustion pulled at his bones. Besides, these extra hours are temporary. They reached the high school gates, where students streamed past in chattering groups. Evan hesitated, shifting from foot to foot. Just promise you'll take care of yourself too, okay? I promise. Daniel squeezed his son's shoulder. Have a good day at school. Back home, Daniel had a few hours before his shift. He pulled out another box of Sarah's belongings from their bedroom closet. The cardboard was soft with age, its corners rounded and worn. Inside, beneath old sheet music and concert programs, he found a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. His hands trembled as he untied the bow. The first letter was dated 15 years ago, written on expensive stationery. As he read, his throat tightened. Dear Sarah, it began in a flowing masculine hand. Your contributions to the latest piece were invaluable. I've made the changes you suggested to the bridge section. Of course, as discussed, this will remain our little secret. Victoria wouldn't understand our creative partnership. Letter after letter revealed a pattern. James Hale, Victoria's late husband, had used Sarah's talent while keeping her involvement hidden. Some letters mentioned payments, others contained promises of future credit that never materialized. Sarah's responses, when included, grew increasingly frustrated. By the time Daniel needed to leave for work, his mind was spinning. He tucked the letters into his work bag, knowing Victoria needed to see them. At Brightwell Technologies, Victoria had arranged for Daniel to meet Lily in a small conference room tucked away from the main offices. The space felt less formal than Victoria's office, with comfortable chairs and large windows overlooking the city. Lily sat cross-legged in one of the chairs, her ever-present sketchbook open before her. When Daniel entered, she looked up with a small smile. Hi, she whispered. Hi there, Lily. Daniel set down his bag and pulled up a chair. Would you like to hear the lullaby? She nodded eagerly, and Daniel began to sing softly. As the familiar melody filled the room, Lily's shoulders relaxed. After the first verse, she joined in with quiet humming. My mommy used to sing it too, she said suddenly, her voice stronger than before the accident. Daniel's heart skipped a beat at this breakthrough. Through the glass walls, he saw Victoria watching, her hand pressed to her mouth. Later that evening, after Lily had gone home with her mother, Daniel knocked on Victoria's office door. She looked up from her computer, her face showing the strain of a long day. Mrs. Hale, he said, there's something else you need to see. He withdrew the letters from his bag and placed them on her desk. Victoria read in silence, her expression growing more troubled with each page. Finally, she set them down and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. I had no idea, she whispered. All those songs he claimed to have written, the music he built his career on. She looked at Daniel, raw pain etched across her features. Mr. Brooks, Daniel, I am so deeply sorry for what James did to your wife. If I had known... You couldn't have known, Daniel said quietly. Sarah never told me either. I think she was trying to protect everyone involved. Victoria stood and walked to the window, her silhouette sharp against the darkening sky. He manipulated her, took advantage of her talent, and I never suspected a thing. She turned back to face Daniel. I will make this right. Sarah deserves credit for her work, even posthumously, and you deserve compensation for what was stolen from her. Daniel shook his head. That's not why I showed you the letters. I just thought you should know the truth. Nevertheless, Victoria insisted, justice is long overdue. The city had grown quiet by the time Daniel left work that night. Streetlights cast pools of yellow light on the empty sidewalks as he walked home, his mind full of Sarah. He could picture her at their small piano, working late into the night on melodies she claimed were just for fun. How many of those pieces had ended up in James Hale's portfolio, uncredited? When he reached their apartment, he found Evan asleep at the kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and notebooks. His guitar leaned against the chair beside him, a half-written music sheet visible among his homework. Daniel stood in the doorway for a moment, watching his son sleep. The truth about Sarah's past was like a physical weight in his chest, not just grief now, but anger too, and a deep sadness for all the recognition she'd never received. Yet, looking at Evan, peacefully dreaming among his own musical endeavors, Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. Sarah's talent lived on, not in stolen songs, but in their son's gentle spirit and love of music. Victoria sat at the head of the mahogany conference table, her posture rigid as she faced three stern-faced board members. Outside the frosted glass door, Lily perched on a cushioned bench, her colored pencils spread beside her as she worked intently in her sketchbook. "This situation with the janitor is becoming problematic," said Harold Matthews, the eldest board member. His wire-rimmed glasses caught the morning light as he shuffled through a stack of papers. "It sets a concerning precedent." Victoria's fingers tightened around her pen. "His name is Daniel Brooks, and he's helped my daughter make more progress in a few days than she has in 2 years. "That's precisely our concern," Margaret Chen interjected, her tailored blazer as crisp as her tone. "Having a maintenance worker involved in what should be professional therapy—" "He's not providing therapy," Victoria cut in. "He simply has a connection with my daughter through a song that your late husband supposedly stole," Thomas Reed added, his mouth twisting into a frown, "which opens up another can of worms entirely." In the hallway, Daniel pushed his cleaning cart past the conference room, his movements slowing as fragments of conversation drifted through the door. His stomach clenched at the mention of inappropriate contact and liability concerns. Lily looked up from her drawing as he passed, her small face brightening. "Hi, Daniel," she whispered, loud enough for only him to hear. He managed a warm smile despite his growing unease. "Hey there, kiddo. That's a beautiful drawing." In the conference room, chairs scraped against the floor as voices grew more heated. "The board has serious reservations about your judgment in this matter," Harold stated firmly. "Having your daughter here during business hours is one thing, but allowing unauthorized personnel to—" "Unauthorized personnel?" Victoria's voice rose slightly. "He's a valued employee who should be focusing on his actual job duties," Margaret interrupted. "This arrangement is inappropriate and potentially dangerous. What do we really know about this man?" Daniel's hands trembled slightly as he wiped down the hallway windows, trying not to obviously eavesdrop but unable to ignore the conversation that could determine his future. "I've reviewed his employee file thoroughly," Victoria responded, her tone clipped. "He's been with us for 3 years, has an impeccable work record, and passes all background checks. More importantly, my daughter trusts him. Your emotional involvement is clouding your professional judgment," Thomas said. "As CEO, you need to consider the company's reputation and liability. What happens if something goes wrong?" "The only thing that's gone wrong in the past 2 years is my daughter's silence," Victoria shot back. "Now she's speaking again. She's drawing again. She's showing signs of life again. And you want me to end that because it doesn't fit into your neat corporate boxes?" Lily hummed softly as she continued coloring, the melody matching the lullaby that had started everything. Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion as he watched her, remembering how his wife used to sing the same tune while working on her music. "Victoria," Harold's voice softened with false sympathy, "we understand your personal situation, but as CEO, you have responsibilities that extend beyond—" "Don't." Victoria's chair scraped back. "Don't you dare use my position to manipulate this situation. My daughter's well-being is non-negotiable." "Then perhaps," Margaret suggested carefully, "it's time to consider whether you can effectively balance both roles." The silence that followed felt heavy and threatening. Daniel moved his cart further down the hall, his heart pounding. He'd grown to care about Lily's progress, and the thought of being forced to stop helping her made his chest ache. "Are you threatening my position?" Victoria's voice was deadly quiet. "We're expressing legitimate concerns," Thomas replied smoothly. "The board needs to be confident in your ability to make objective decisions." "My objective decision is that my daughter's improvement takes priority," Victoria stated firmly. "If you have specific complaints about Mr. Brooks's job performance, file them through proper channels. Otherwise, this discussion is over." The conference room door opened abruptly. Victoria emerged, her face composed but her eyes blazing. She paused when she saw Daniel, who quickly resumed cleaning the windows. "Daniel," she called softly, glancing at Lily to ensure she was still absorbed in her drawing. "Could you come to my office in about 15 minutes? He nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Of course, Miss Hale." The board members filed out, each giving Daniel calculating looks as they passed. He focused on his work, pretending not to notice their scrutiny. 15 minutes later, Daniel knocked on Victoria's office door. She waved him in, looking tired as she stood by her window. "I assume you heard some of that," she said without preamble. "Yes, ma'am." I'm sorry if I've caused any problems. Victoria shook her head. You haven't caused anything. The board... She paused, choosing her words carefully. They're threatening disciplinary action if we continue our current arrangement with Lily. Daniel's shoulders slumped. I understand. I don't want to jeopardize your position or... No, Victoria interrupted firmly. I'm not telling you this because I'm ending it. I'm telling you so you understand what we're up against. She turned to face him fully. Lily spoke 3 complete sentences yesterday. She's drawing again. She's beginning to process her grief in healthy ways. I won't let them take that away from her. But your job is important, she acknowledged, but not as important as my daughter. She sighed heavily. I wanted you to be aware of the situation. The board may try to pressure you directly or create problems with your supervisor. If that happens, please come to me immediately. Daniel nodded, touched by her trust and determination. Through the glass wall, he could see Lily still sitting on the bench, her small form hunched over her sketchbook. The sight strengthened his resolve. I won't let them intimidate me, he assured Victoria. As long as Lily needs this, I'm here. Victoria's expression softened with gratitude. Thank you, Daniel. I know this isn't what you signed up for when you took this job. Sometimes the most important work finds us, he replied quietly, thinking of his own journey through grief and healing. I'll be careful, and I'll document everything if that helps protect both of us. It might come to that, Victoria agreed, her gaze drifting to where her daughter sat. The board meets again next week. I suspect this isn't over. Gray dawn light filtered through the kitchen window as Daniel stirred scrambled eggs in a well-worn pan. The gentle scrape of the spatula and the soft sizzle were the only sounds breaking the early morning quiet. His movements were mechanical, his mind elsewhere, as he replayed the board meeting conversation he'd overheard yesterday. Evan came down the stairs, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He paused in the doorway, studying his father's distant expression. Dad, you okay? Daniel blinked, forcing a smile. Just tired, buddy. He slid the eggs onto 2 plates and added slightly burnt toast. Sorry about the toast. Got distracted. It's fine. Evan sat at their small kitchen table, his observant eyes never leaving his father's face. Something's wrong, though. I can tell. Daniel sighed, settling into his chair. That obvious, huh? You've got that worried crease thing happening, Evan pointed to his own forehead, mimicking his father's expression. Like when the bills come. Smart kid, Daniel picked at his toast. Just some stuff at work. Nothing for you to worry about. Later that morning, Victoria texted Daniel about meeting in an unused office on the 3rd floor. When he arrived, Lily was already there, setting up her art supplies on a dusty conference table. Her face lit up when she saw him. Daniel! Her voice was soft, but clear, such a change from just days ago. Hey there, artist? He smiled, setting down his cleaning supplies. What are you drawing today? Victoria stood by the window, watching their interaction with careful eyes. We have about an hour before my next meeting, she said quietly. The board doesn't know about these sessions. Lily spread out her latest drawing, a picture of a woman with long dark hair singing musical notes that floated up like butterflies. It's Mommy, she explained, her finger tracing the notes. She used to sing to me every night. Daniel's throat tightened. My wife did the same for Evan. He sat beside Lily, pulling out the old lyric sheet he now carried with him. Want to hear the song again? As Daniel hummed the familiar melody, Lily began to speak more, sharing fragments of memories about her mother, bedtime stories, shopping trips, dance parties in the kitchen. Victoria moved closer, drinking in every word her daughter spoke. Sarah, my wife, she loved dancing in the kitchen too, Daniel shared, his voice gentle, usually while burning dinner. He glanced at Victoria. She was terrible at cooking, but she made everything fun somehow. After she passed, I had to learn fast. Evan needed proper meals, not just takeout. Victoria's professional mask softened. How do you do it? Raise him alone? One day at a time, Daniel answered honestly. Some days are harder than others. But Evan, he's been my rock, more grown up than any teenager should have to be. Throughout the week, these secret sessions continued. Each day, Lily spoke more freely, her voice growing stronger. Victoria arranged different meeting spots, empty offices, quiet conference rooms, even the building's small courtyard once. She watched Daniel's patient interactions with her daughter, noting his genuine kindness and steady faith despite his own struggles. On Thursday afternoon, Evan showed up at Brightwell after school. he found Daniel cleaning windows in the main lobby. "Thought maybe I could help," Evan said, dropping his backpack behind the security desk. "You know, make the work go faster so we can both get home earlier." Daniel paused, spray bottle in hand. "You sure? It's not exactly exciting work." "I'm sure." Evan grabbed a spare cloth. "Besides, I finished my homework during study hall." Together, father and son worked through the afternoon. Evan learned the proper way to clean windows without streaks, how to efficiently empty trash bins, and the importance of paying attention to details. He watched his father interact with everyone, from executives to security guards, with the same respectful demeanor. When Victoria passed through the lobby with Lily, she stopped to thank Evan for helping. Lily showed him her latest drawing, and soon the teenagers were discussing music, Evan's guitar playing, and Lily's memories of her mother's songs. "Your son has your heart," Victoria told Daniel later as they watched the two interact. "That's rare these days." Daniel nodded, pride evident in his tired eyes. "He's a good kid. Better than I deserve sometimes." "I don't think that's true," Victoria said softly. "You've shown me what real integrity looks like this week. No pretense, no agenda, just honest kindness." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Whatever the board decides, I want you to know that." The evening air was cool as Daniel and Evan walked home together, their shadows long in the setting sun. Both were tired, but it was a good kind of tired, the satisfaction of honest work and helping others. "Thanks for coming today," Daniel said, glancing at his son. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." Evan kicked a pebble along the sidewalk. "Besides, it was kind of nice working together, like a team." Daniel smiled, draping an arm across Evan's shoulders. Despite the uncertainty hanging over his job, despite the board's disapproval, despite all the struggles they still faced, this moment felt like a gift. His son beside him, a good day's work behind them, and the simple pleasure of walking home together. They turned onto their street as the first stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now, this was enough. The morning sun streamed through Brightwell's cafeteria windows, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Two administrative assistants huddled over their coffee cups, heads bent close together as they watched Victoria Hale cross the room with her daughter. "Did you hear?" one whispered. "She's been spending hours with that janitor guy." "The quiet one? Daniel something?" "Brooks. Daniel Brooks. Maria from accounting said she saw them talking in the courtyard yesterday." The whispers followed Victoria as she guided Lily to their usual table. She pretended not to notice the sideways glances and hushed conversations. Lily clutched her sketchbook, seemingly oblivious to the attention they were drawing. Daniel entered the cafeteria pushing his cleaning cart, nodding politely to everyone he passed. He paused to help an elderly programmer who had dropped his coffee cup, quickly mopping up the spill and offering to get him a fresh cup. "Thank you, Daniel," the programmer said, clearly surprised by the gesture. "You know, you're the first person to actually ask my name in months." A tech support worker struggled with a locked wheel on a computer cart nearby, muttering under her breath. Daniel noticed and approached carefully. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked, setting down his cleaning supplies. "I fixed my son's bike wheel last summer. Might be something similar." The woman stepped back, relief evident on her face. "Please, I've been fighting with this thing all morning." Daniel knelt, examining the wheel mechanism. With practiced hands, he loosened the lock, removed some debris, and had it rolling smoothly within minutes. The tech worker beamed. "You're a lifesaver. I've got 3 floors of updates to do today." "Happy to help," Daniel replied with a modest smile. "Just remember to prop the door for the delivery folks. They've got heavy loads too." As if on cue, one of the regular delivery workers entered, limping slightly under the weight of several boxes. Daniel immediately moved to assist him, taking half the load. "How's that ankle, Jim? Still giving you trouble?" "Better than yesterday," Jim answered, grateful for the help. "Doctor says another week of taking it easy." "Let me help you get these to their destinations," Daniel offered. "No sense making it worse." Victoria observed these interactions from her table, noting how each small act of kindness created ripples through the office. Employees who normally hurried past each other with barely a nod were stopping to chat. People held doors, offered assistance, shared smiles. Lily tugged at her mother's sleeve, pointing to where Daniel was now helping an intern collect scattered papers. "He's like the helpers on my favorite show," Lily said softly, her voice growing stronger each day. "The ones who fix things." Victoria smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. Yes, he is. She watched as Daniel finished helping the intern and returned to his regular duties, humming the familiar lullaby as he worked. To her surprise, Lily began humming along, her small voice matching the tune perfectly. Other employees noticed, some even joining in quietly as they passed. The melody seemed to float through the building, creating an unexpected sense of community. Later that morning, Victoria called her assistant into her office. "I want to propose something to the board," she said, organizing her thoughts. "A community outreach program, something that embodies the kind of connection we've been seeing lately." Her assistant nodded encouragingly. "The staff morale has improved significantly this week. Even Janet from HR mentioned it." "Exactly," Victoria stood, pacing slowly. "We've been so focused on corporate image and profit margins, we've forgotten the human element. Daniel, Mr. Brooks, he demonstrates it perfectly. Simple kindness, genuine concern for others, quiet strength in difficult times." She outlined her idea, a program where Brightwell employees would volunteer in local communities, helping with everything from basic repairs to mentoring youth. The company would provide resources and support, but the heart of the program would be the personal connections formed. Throughout the day, Daniel continued his work, unaware of the impact he was having. He fixed a broken cabinet in the break room, helped a new employee find their way to a meeting, and shared encouraging words with a stressed-out project manager. Lily followed him occasionally, her sketchbook filling with drawings of people helping people. She spoke more frequently now, especially when Daniel was nearby. "Mommy," she said during lunch, "can I show Daniel my new picture?" Victoria watched her daughter practically skip across the cafeteria to where Daniel was wiping down tables. The change in Lily was remarkable, from complete silence to initiating conversations, even if they were still brief. "It's you," Lily explained, holding up her drawing. "Helping everyone. See the smiles?" Daniel studied the childish artwork with genuine interest. "Those are great smiles. You've got a real talent there." "Like your wife?" Lily asked innocently. "Mommy said she made beautiful things too." "Yes," Daniel answered softly, "just like her." The day wound down, shadows lengthening across the office floors. Victoria finalized her proposal for the outreach program, inspired by the positive changes she'd witnessed. She named it Brightwell Bridges, a nod to the connections being built both within and beyond the company walls. Daniel finished his shift just as Evan arrived from his after-school activities. They met in the lobby where Lily and Victoria were also preparing to leave. "Daniel," Victoria called, "a moment please." She quickly explained her idea for the outreach program, watching his face carefully. "I'd like you to be part of it," she said, "if you're willing. Your influence here, it's been remarkable." Daniel looked surprised. "I'm just doing my job, ma'am." "No," Victoria said firmly. "You're doing much more than that. You're showing us how to be better people." As Daniel and Evan walked home in the growing dusk, the street lamps flickering to life above them, they discussed Victoria's proposal. "So you'd be helping set up volunteer programs?" Evan asked, adjusting his backpack. "Apparently," Daniel replied, still processing the idea. "Victoria thinks simple acts of kindness can change things. Maybe she's right. Like fixing Mrs. Henderson's porch steps last month?" "Exactly like that." They walked in comfortable silence for a moment before Evan spoke again. "Mom would have loved this idea." "Yeah," Daniel smiled, remembering his wife's generous spirit. "She really would have." Sunlight filtered through the dusty windows of Daniel and Evan's small apartment, casting a warm glow over their cramped living room. Daniel sat cross-legged on the worn carpet, surrounded by guitar repair tools, while Evan held his old acoustic guitar carefully in his lap. "Hand me that small screwdriver, buddy," Daniel said, pointing to the toolkit spread out between them. The guitar's neck needed tightening, and one of the tuning pegs had come loose over the years. Evan passed the tool to his father. "Do you think we can really fix it? It's been sitting in the closet forever." "Your mom always said anything broken could be fixed with enough patience." Daniel's fingers worked steadily on the loose hardware. "Sometimes things just need a little extra care to work right again." The morning passed quietly as they worked together, pausing only for Daniel to demonstrate proper technique or explain the guitar's mechanics. Around noon, Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria, asking if he had time to talk about something important. "Go ahead, Dad," Evan said, noticing his father's hesitation. "I can keep working on cleaning the fretboard like you showed me." Daniel stepped into their tiny kitchen and called Victoria. Her voice came through clear and professional, but with an underlying warmth that had developed over their recent interactions. Daniel, I wanted to discuss something with you, Victoria began. The board has approved my proposal for a new initiative at Brightwell, the Compassion Initiative. It's inspired by the way you've been helping around here, actually. Daniel leaned against the counter, surprised. Me? Yes, we want to organize a company-wide community event, volunteering at local shelters, schools, and senior centers. I'd like you to help lead it. The offer caught him off guard. I'm just a janitor, Victoria. I don't know anything about leading company programs. You know more than you think, she said softly. The way you've helped Lily, how you treat everyone here with such kindness. That's exactly what this initiative needs. Daniel glanced at Evan in the living room, still focused on the guitar. I don't know. Lily asks about you every morning now, Victoria added. She's been humming that lullaby all week. Please consider it for her. Something in Victoria's voice made Daniel's chest tighten. He recognized the mixture of hope and worry in her tone. It was the same way he sounded when talking about Evan. All right, he agreed. I'll help. Over the next hour, Victoria outlined the basic plan. Daniel found himself suggesting ideas based on his own experiences of struggling to make ends meet, identifying local organizations that truly needed support, ways to involve families, and how to make the biggest impact with limited resources. When he returned to the living room, Evan had made significant progress cleaning the guitar's wooden surface. Everything okay, Dad? Yeah. Daniel sat back down, picking up a fresh polishing cloth. They want me to help with a new program at work. It might mean some different hours, but we'll make it work. That's great! Evan's face lit up. See, I told you they'd notice how hard you work. Throughout the afternoon, as they continued restoring the guitar, Daniel's phone kept buzzing with messages from Victoria. They discussed logistics, schedules, and ideas for the initiative. Each exchange revealed more about their shared experiences, the challenge of raising children alone, the weight of responsibility, the importance of building something meaningful from loss. Around 4 o'clock, Daniel received a photo from Victoria. Lily sitting at her desk, eyes closed in concentration, quietly humming the lullaby while drawing. The caption read, "She practices every afternoon now." Daniel showed the photo to Evan. Remember how I told you about Lily, the little girl who wouldn't speak? Evan nodded, carefully testing the newly tightened strings, the one who liked Mom's song. That's right, she's getting better every day. Daniel paused, watching his son tune the guitar with growing confidence. Sometimes healing happens in unexpected ways. As evening approached, the guitar began to look more like its old self. Evan played a few experimental chords, and the sound rang clear and true through their small apartment. Daniel felt a familiar ache in his chest. His wife would have loved to see this moment. A final text from Victoria arrived. "Thank you for agreeing to help. This means more than you know." Daniel typed back, "Happy to help. Lily's photo made my day." After a simple dinner of mac and cheese, Daniel and Evan tested the restored guitar together. The instrument passed smoothly between them as they took turns playing the few songs they both knew. When Evan yawned for the third time, Daniel knew it was time for bed. "Hey, buddy," Daniel said as he helped Evan into bed, pulling up the worn Batman comforter. "How would you like to come to this community event with me when it happens? We could volunteer together." Evan's tired eyes brightened. "Really? You want me to come?" "Of course. You're the most important part of my life. I want to share this with you." Daniel smoothed down the blanket. "Plus, you might even get to meet Lily. I think you two would get along." "Promise I can come?" Evan asked, fighting another yawn. Daniel smiled, squeezing his son's shoulder. "I promise. Now get some sleep, okay?" The guitar sat propped in the corner of Evan's room, its polished surface catching the soft light from the hallway. Like everything else in their lives lately, it felt like another small piece falling into place. Broken things becoming whole again, one careful repair at a time. The community center's main hall buzzed with excited chatter as Brightwell Technologies employees and their families filed in through the wide double doors. Strings of twinkling lights crisscrossed the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the crowd below. Hand-painted banners promoting the Compassion Initiative hung from the walls, their bright colors adding life to the normally plain space. Daniel stood off to the side, tugging at the collar of his freshly pressed shirt, a gift from Victoria for the occasion. His weathered hands fidgeted with the small note cards containing his speech. Evan approached, looking sharp in his best sweater. "You've got this, Dad," Evan said, straightening Daniel's slightly crooked tie. "Just pretend you're talking to me and Lily." Daniel managed a nervous smile. "Thanks, buddy." Never thought I'd be speaking to hundreds of people about—" He gestured vaguely. "All of this." Across the room, Victoria gracefully worked the crowd, her professional demeanor softened by genuine warmth. Lily stayed close to her mother's side, wearing a pale blue dress that matched the event's decorations. She kept glancing over at Daniel, her small hand clutching her ever-present sketchbook. The hall gradually filled to capacity. The gentle murmur of conversation died down as Victoria stepped onto the stage, approaching the microphone with practiced ease. "Welcome, everyone, to Brightwell's first annual Compassion Initiative event," she began, her voice clear and strong. "Today marks the beginning of something truly special, a commitment to serving our community with the same dedication we bring to our work." She paused, her composure wavering slightly as she continued. "Sometimes the most profound changes come from unexpected places. Sometimes the simplest acts of kindness can transform lives." Her eyes found Daniel in the crowd. "I'd like to invite someone who has taught us all about the power of compassion. Daniel Brooks, would you please join me?" Daniel's feet felt like lead as he made his way to the stage. Just as he reached the steps, a small figure darted from Victoria's side. Lily rushed forward and grabbed his hand, her grip tight and unwavering. A collective murmur of surprise rippled through the audience. Standing at the microphone, Daniel cleared his throat. Lily's presence beside him somehow made everything easier. He set aside his note cards. "I'm just a janitor," he began honestly, earning a few gentle chuckles. "I clean floors and empty trash cans. But what I've learned is that every job, every person, every moment has the potential to make a difference." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "2 months ago, I was humming my late wife's lullaby while working, something I've done countless times before. I didn't know then that simple tune would help a little girl find her voice again. I didn't know it would uncover long-buried truths and heal old wounds." In the front row, Evan beamed with pride. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "That lullaby," Daniel said softly, "was written by my wife for a dear friend she called her sister." He glanced at Victoria, who nodded encouragingly. "It's about hope, about light finding its way through darkness. Maybe," he looked down at Lily, "maybe we could share it with everyone." Lily's grip on his hand tightened. Then, to everyone's amazement, she nodded. Daniel began to sing softly, his voice carrying clearly through the hushed hall. The melody was simple, but haunting, filled with love and longing. Then, something magical happened. Lily's small voice joined his, trembling at first but growing steadier with each note. Her clear, sweet tones blended perfectly with Daniel's deeper ones. The lullaby floated through the air, touching every heart in the room. "Sleep now, dear one. Day is done, stars are dancing one by one. Though shadows fall and night grows deep, love's light will forever keep." There wasn't a dry eye in the hall. Victoria pressed both hands to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, she could see past the grief that had clouded her world since losing her husband. Beside her, Evan wiped his eyes with his sleeve, watching his father with a mixture of love and admiration. When the last note faded, silence held for a moment before the audience erupted in applause. Lily didn't let go of Daniel's hand as they left the stage, her face glowing with quiet joy. The rest of the event passed in a blur of heartfelt speeches, volunteer sign-ups, and community planning. As the crowd began to disperse into the cool evening air, Victoria approached Daniel and Evan. "Would you both join us for dinner?" she asked. "Nothing fancy, just the diner around the corner. I think we could all use some quiet time after such an emotional day." The diner was a cozy spot with worn leather booths and the comforting smell of coffee and pie. They settled into a corner booth, Lily sliding in next to Daniel while Evan sat beside Victoria. The waitress brought them menus and water, the ice clinking softly in their glasses. Under the warm glow of the diner's lights, they looked like any other family enjoying a meal together. They ordered comfort food, burgers, fries, and milkshakes. Lily actually giggled when Evan made a mustard smiley face on his burger bun. Victoria watched them all, her professional facade completely melted away. "I never thought," she started, then had to pause to collect herself. "I never imagined we could come so far in such a short time." Daniel smiled, helping Lily dip her fries in ketchup. "Sometimes the best things in life catch us by surprise." They lingered over their meal, sharing stories and comfortable silences. When they finally stepped out into the night, the streetlights cast gentle pools of light on the sidewalk. A cool breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine from a nearby garden. Victoria hugged Daniel, then Evan. "Thank you both," she whispered. For everything. Lily gave Daniel an extra long hug, whispering, "See you Monday?" Her voice was clear and hopeful. "You bet," Daniel replied softly. They parted ways under the streetlights, each pair heading in opposite directions, but all carrying lighter hearts than they'd had in years. The harsh buzz of Daniel's phone jolted him awake. Sunlight barely peeked through his bedroom curtains as the device vibrated insistently on his nightstand. He blinked, trying to clear his bleary vision, and reached for the phone. 3 missed calls from Victoria and a flood of text messages filled his screen. "Dad," Evan's worried voice came from the doorway. "Something's wrong. People are talking about us online." Daniel sat up, his heart beginning to race as he opened the first message. It was a link to an article titled, "Corporate Scandal. Janitor Manipulates CEO's Daughter for Personal Gain." His hands trembled as he scrolled through the story, filled with twisted half-truths and outright lies. The article painted him as a calculating opportunist who had used Lily's vulnerability to advance his position within Brightwell Technologies. It quoted anonymous sources claiming he had orchestrated the entire situation, from the lullaby to the community event performance, all to curry favor with Victoria. "This isn't true," Evan said, reading over his shoulder. "Dad, none of this is true." Before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed again. Victoria's name flashed across the screen. He answered immediately, his throat tight. "Victoria, Daniel," her voice was strained, professional. "The board has called an emergency meeting. They're demanding immediate action regarding this situation." "You know these allegations are false," Daniel said, standing up and pacing his small bedroom. "Everything I did was for Lily's well-being. I know, Victoria cut in, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "But the board, they're threatening to remove me if I don't handle this their way. They say the company's reputation is at stake." Daniel's stomach twisted. "What are they asking you to do?" There was a long pause. "They want you suspended pending an investigation, effective immediately." The words hit him like a physical blow. "Victoria, please, think about Lily. She needs—" "I'm sorry, Daniel. Security will meet you at the entrance. Please don't make this harder than it has to be." The line went dead. Daniel stared at his phone, feeling as if the floor had dropped out from beneath him. Evan stood nearby, his face pale with worry. "Dad?" "I have to go to work," Daniel said, trying to keep his voice steady. Just a normal day." But it wasn't normal. When Daniel arrived at Brightwell Technologies, 2 security guards waited by the entrance. Their faces were grim as they escorted him inside. Employees stopped to stare as he passed, their whispers following him down the corridors he'd cleaned countless times. They reached the executive floor just as Victoria emerged from the boardroom, her face a mask of professional detachment. Behind her, several board members watched through the glass walls, their expressions smug. "Your security clearance has been revoked," Victoria said mechanically, not meeting his eyes. "You'll need to—" A small figure suddenly burst from Victoria's office. "Daniel!" Lily ran toward him, her face streaked with tears. "Don't go! Please don't go!" The security guard stepped forward, but Daniel was already kneeling to meet her. "It's okay, sweetheart. Everything will be okay." "No!" Lily screamed as Victoria pulled her back. "No, no, no!" Her voice grew more hysterical with each word. "Miss Hale," one of the guards said firmly, "we need to proceed." Victoria held Lily tightly as she thrashed and screamed. The little girl's face was red with effort, her hands reaching desperately toward Daniel. The sound of her anguish echoed through the hallway, drawing more onlookers. "I'm sorry," Victoria whispered, almost too quietly to hear over Lily's cries. Daniel allowed himself to be led to the elevator, Lily's screams following him until the doors closed. The security guards remained silent as they escorted him through the lobby and out into the parking lot. One of them handed him a manila envelope containing official suspension paperwork. "You'll be contacted regarding the investigation," the guard said stiffly. Daniel nodded numbly and walked to his car. Through the building's glass front, he could see people watching. Some looked sympathetic, others suspicious. He got into his vehicle and sat there for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. His phone buzzed again, a text from Victoria. "Lily's locked herself in my office bathroom, won't come out, won't speak. I'm so sorry." Rain began to fall as Daniel drove home, fat drops hitting his windshield in an increasingly heavy pattern. By the time he parked outside his apartment building, it was pouring. He sat in the car, listening to the drumming of rain on the roof, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. Finally, he made himself get out and climb the stairs to his apartment. The door opened before he could reach for his keys. Evan stood there, his eyes red-rimmed but determined. Without a word, his son stepped forward and wrapped him in a tight hug. Daniel held on, feeling his carefully maintained composure beginning to crack. They stood there in the doorway as the rain fell outside, father and son holding each other up in the face of injustice and uncertainty. "We'll fix this," Evan whispered fiercely. "We'll make them see the truth." Daniel closed his eyes, rainwater dripping from his hair onto his son's shoulder. In that moment, he didn't have the strength to respond, so he just held his boy tighter, grateful for this one constant in his life that even the board couldn't take away. Rain drummed against the kitchen window, casting gray shadows across the small apartment. Daniel stared at his untouched coffee, watching the steam rise and fade into nothing. Across the table, Evan pushed his cereal around in circles, the spoon scraping quietly against the bowl. The morning paper lay crumpled by the trash can. Daniel couldn't bear to see the headline again. His phone sat face down on the counter, silent now after yesterday's flood of messages and calls. "You should eat something, Dad," Evan said softly, breaking the heavy silence. Daniel lifted his coffee cup with trembling hands. "I'm not very hungry, buddy." "They're wrong about you," Evan insisted, setting his spoon down with a clang. "Everyone who was there at the event saw the truth. They saw how you helped Lily." Daniel's chest tightened at the mention of her name. He could still hear her screams as security led him out of the building, could still see Victoria's torn expression as she stood frozen by the board members. "I failed them both," Daniel whispered, more to himself than to Evan. "I should have been more careful. Should have seen this coming." "No." Evan pushed his chair back and walked around the table. He placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "You didn't fail anyone. You gave Lily her voice back. You showed everyone at Brightwell what real kindness looks like." Daniel reached up and squeezed his son's hand, amazed at the young man he was becoming. "When did you get so wise?" "Must be all that homework you make me do." Evan attempted a smile, but worry still creased his young face. "What are we going to do now?" Daniel stood and carried his coffee to the sink, pouring it out. "I'll start looking for work today. There are other buildings that need janitors." "I can help after school," Evan offered. "I can look up jobs online, help you fill out applications." "You focus on your studies," Daniel started, but Evan cut him off. "We're in this together, Dad. Let me help." Across town at Brightwell Technologies, Victoria sat in her office, a stack of resumes for new janitorial staff untouched on her desk. Lily lay curled up on the office couch, clutching her sketchbook, eyes red from crying. "Sweetheart," Victoria tried again, "would you like to try talking to Dr. Matthews today?" Lily shook her head, her dark hair falling across her face. She opened her sketchbook and pointed to a drawing of Daniel, then whispered, "I want him." Victoria's heart broke all over again. She'd spent hours arguing with the board, trying to explain that Daniel was innocent, that he'd never manipulated anyone. But they'd been unmoved, more concerned with public image than truth. "I know you miss him," Victoria said softly. "I'm trying to fix this." Lily turned away, facing the wall. The week crawled by in a blur of rejection letters and unanswered phone calls. Daniel sat at the library computer, filling out yet another online application while Evan searched job sites on his phone beside him. "Here's one," Evan said hopefully. "Night security at the mall?" Daniel shook his head. "They want 3 years of security experience." He rubbed his tired eyes. "Maybe I should look outside the city." "We're not moving," Evan said firmly. "This is our home. Something will work out." But as the days passed, nothing did work out. Every application seemed to disappear into a void. Daniel's savings dwindled as bills piled up. Each night he'd check his phone, hoping for a message from Victoria, but there was only silence. Late that night, after Evan had finally gone to bed, Daniel sat alone at their small kitchen table. The apartment was quiet except for the soft patter of rain against the windows and the occasional rumble of distant thunder. He clasped his hands together, bowing his head. "Lord," he whispered, his voice rough with unshed tears, "I don't understand your plan right now, but I trust you're still there. Please, please show me the way forward. Help me be strong for Evan. Help me know how to help Lily." His voice caught. "And please, please watch over Victoria. Give her the strength she needs." The rain continued to fall outside, offering no answers to his quiet prayers. Victoria sat at her mahogany desk in the dim, early morning light filtering through her corner office windows, her manicured fingers trembling as she picked up the tabloid for what felt like the 100th time. The accusations seemed to grow more outrageous with each reading, each inflammatory word cutting deeper into her conscience. Janitor manipulates vulnerable CEO's daughter for corporate gain. The subheading was even worse. Brightwell Technologies leadership crisis. Is Victoria Hale unfit to protect her own child? Her stomach churned violently at the sensationalized headlines and the parade of anonymous sources quoted throughout the article. The coffee she'd been nursing had grown cold hours ago, forgotten among the scattered papers that covered every inch of her usually pristine workspace. Something wasn't adding up. The pieces of this puzzle felt forced together, like someone had tried to jam the wrong pieces into place. Victoria pulled up the security footage from the past month on her computer, her heart racing as she watched Daniel's interactions with Lily frame by frame. Every moment was genuine. His gentle demeanor never wavered, the way he kept a respectful distance unless Lily approached him first, how he always made sure other staff members were nearby during their impromptu sessions in the hallways or break rooms. She watched him kneel down to Lily's eye level when she showed him her drawings, saw the careful way he positioned himself so that his back was always to the security cameras, ensuring transparency. There was nothing calculated or manipulative in his body language, nothing that suggested the predatory behavior the articles implied. "This doesn't make sense," Victoria muttered to herself, reaching for her phone with shaking hands. She dialed her head of security, a gruff but loyal man who'd been with the company for 15 years. "Jim, I need all internal communications regarding Daniel Brooks from the past 2 weeks. Everything, emails, meeting minutes, phone logs, anything." "Right away, Miss Hale," Jim's gravelly voice responded. "Should I be looking for something specific?" "Conspiracy," Victoria said flatly. "Corporate sabotage." Within an hour, her desk was completely covered with printed emails and meeting minutes, creating a paper trail that told a damning story. As she sorted through them methodically, her hands began to shake again. This time with a fury that threatened to consume her entirely. Board members had exchanged messages plotting to use Daniel's genuine connection with Lily against her leadership. They'd carefully crafted the narrative like seasoned scriptwriters, feeding false information to specific reporters they had relationships with, all designed to undermine her authority and question her judgment. Marcus Webb's name appeared repeatedly in the communications, along with several other board members she'd once considered allies. They'd orchestrated the entire scandal with military precision, timing the leak perfectly to coincide with the quarterly board review. Those manipulative, power-hungry... Victoria stopped herself mid-curse, taking a deep breath to regain her composure. She pressed the intercom button with more force than necessary. "Sarah, cancel all my meetings for today, and get Jonathan Riley on the line. I need our best corporate attorney." Victoria spent the morning methodically building her case like a prosecutor preparing for trial. She organized evidence chronologically, highlighted timestamps that proved coordination, and noted which board members were involved in each communication. Her corporate lawyer's words rang in her ears during their emergency conference call. "This is clear evidence of corporate sabotage and defamation. We have grounds for both internal disciplinary action and potential criminal charges." The legal implications were staggering, but Victoria felt a grim satisfaction knowing she had them dead to rights. Around noon, she heard soft, familiar footsteps in her office doorway. Victoria looked up to see Lily standing there like a lost ghost, clutching her worn sketchbook against her chest, her eyes red and puffy from days of silent crying. Victoria's heart ached as she noticed how thin her daughter had become. She hadn't seen Lily eat a proper meal since Daniel had been escorted from the building 3 days ago. "Come here, sweetheart," Victoria said gently, pushing back from her desk and opening her arms wide. Lily shuffled across the plush carpet and climbed into her mother's lap, something she hadn't done in years. The weight of her small body felt both comforting and heartbreaking. "I'm going to fix this mess. I promise I'll bring Daniel back." Lily looked up at her mother with those expressive eyes that held too much sadness for an 8-year-old, hope flickering in their depths for the first time in days. She opened her sketchbook with careful hands, revealing page after page of drawings. Daniel singing with his gentle smile, their little group at the community center event with everyone laughing, Evan playing guitar while Lily clapped along. Each sketch was filled with joy and warmth, a stark contrast to the cold accusations in the newspapers. Victoria hugged her daughter closer, feeling tears prick at her own eyes. "I need to make a very important call," she said softly, stroking Lily's hair. She picked up her phone and dialed Daniel's number with trembling fingers, each ring echoing in her chest. It rang 4 times before his voice came through, tired and uncertain, carrying the weight of 3 sleepless nights. Hello? Daniel, it's Victoria Hale. I need to see you urgently. Can I come by your apartment this evening? Her voice was steadier than she felt. There was a long pause and she could almost hear him processing the unexpected request. Is everything okay with Lily? No, Victoria admitted, her voice cracking slightly. But it will be. I've discovered something crucial about these allegations. This conversation needs to happen in person, away from the office. Of course, Daniel replied without hesitation, though his voice still carried a note of cautious confusion. He gave her his address, his tone formal, but not unkind. Victoria spent the rest of the afternoon in intense preparation, working alongside her legal team to outline a comprehensive strategy. They would confront the board with irrefutable evidence, demand immediate resignations from the conspirators, and issue a public statement clearing Daniel's name and reputation. The lawyers warned her repeatedly that it would be a messy public battle that could damage her own standing. But Victoria didn't care anymore. She thought of Lily's silent tears, of Daniel's dignified exit despite the public humiliation, of Evan's stricken face as he watched his father being escorted out like a criminal. The injustice of it all fueled her determination. As evening approached, Victoria gathered her files into a leather briefcase and checked on Lily, who was staying with her trusted nanny in the executive childcare suite. I'll be back soon, sweetheart. Things are going to get much better, I promise. The drive to Daniel's apartment complex took her through neighborhoods she rarely visited in her insulated corporate life. Modest 2-story buildings lined quiet streets where string lights decorated some balconies and children's bikes were chained to metal railings. Flower boxes sprouted from some windows, and she could smell barbecue smoke drifting from a nearby patio. She parked her sleek luxury car between 2 well-worn sedans that looked like they'd seen many faithful years of service. Victoria sat in her car for a moment, gathering her courage. The contrast between this humble neighborhood and her gated community was stark. But she felt no judgment, only a growing respect for Daniel's quiet dignity in the face of financial struggle. She smoothed her designer blazer and grabbed her briefcase, making her way up the concrete stairs that were clean but showed honest signs of age, scuffed walls, worn carpet, flickering fluorescent lights that hummed softly overhead. She found apartment 3B and knocked firmly on the wooden door, her heart hammering against her ribs. The door opened to reveal Evan's surprised face, his eyes widening like saucers at the sight of the CEO of Brightwell Technologies standing in his narrow hallway. He looked older than his 16 years, wearing the kind of responsibility that came from helping his father shoulder life's burdens. His expression shifted from shock to cautious politeness as he took in her expensive clothes and leather briefcase, clearly wondering what could bring Victoria Hale to their modest home. Daniel opened his apartment door, his heart thumping against his ribs. Victoria stood in the narrow hallway, her usual corporate polish dimmed by exhaustion. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands fidgeted with her purse strap, a gesture so human, so unlike her usual composure, that Daniel felt his guard drop slightly. "Please come in," he said softly, stepping aside. The small living room, with its worn furniture and carefully mended curtains, felt worlds away from Brightwell's gleaming corridors. Evan hovered uncertainly by the kitchen doorway, his homework spread across the table behind him. "It's okay, son," Daniel assured him. "Why don't you work on that math while we talk?" Evan nodded and disappeared into the kitchen, though Daniel knew his son would hear every word. Victoria sank into their old armchair, her shoulders dropping as if releasing a heavy weight. "Daniel, I owe you the most profound apology," she began, her voice rough with emotion. "The board, they orchestrated everything. The tabloid story, the allegations, all of it. They wanted to undermine my leadership because I was changing too many things, becoming too—" She paused, searching for words. "Too human in their eyes." Daniel sat on the edge of the couch, processing her words. "How did you find out?" "I couldn't accept that the story felt wrong, so I dug deeper. There were security footage gaps, deliberately deleted emails that our IT team recovered, even payments to the tabloid traced back to board members' personal accounts." Victoria's hands clenched in her lap. "They wanted to destroy your reputation to get to me, using you, and by extension, my daughter, as pawns in their power play." The truth settled over Daniel like a warm blanket, easing the cold doubt that had gripped him for days. "Lily," he said softly, "how is she?" Victoria's composure cracked. "She won't speak, won't eat properly. She just sits with her sketchbook, drawing the same thing over and over. You singing to her. She wiped quickly at her eyes. The nurses are with her now. I had to come see you first, to make this right. From the kitchen came the soft scrape of Evan's chair, though he remained respectfully out of sight. Daniel's throat felt tight with emotion. What happens now? I'm calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. I have enough evidence to remove the corrupt members, and I'm reinstating you immediately. Victoria leaned forward, her eyes fierce. But I need to know if you'll come back, not just for the job, for Lily. She needs you, Daniel. I think... She hesitated. I think we both do. Daniel's eyes burned with unshed tears. Of course I'll come back. Those moments with Lily, helping her find her voice again. They gave me purpose too, reminded me what really matters. Victoria stood suddenly, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. The meeting is at 9 tomorrow. I want you there when I expose everything. The next morning, Daniel stood nervously in Brightwell's main conference room as Victoria systematically dismantled the corrupt board members' schemes. Employees packed the room, gasping as she revealed document after document proving the conspiracy. When she officially announced Daniel's reinstatement, the room erupted in applause and cheers. Several workers he'd helped over the months called out encouragement, their support washing over him like a healing balm. But the real test came that afternoon. Victoria led him to her private office, where Lily sat curled in a window seat, clutching her sketchbook. The moment she saw Daniel, her eyes went wide. Hey there, sweetheart, he said gently, kneeling down a few feet away. I've missed our special songs. Lily launched herself across the room so fast, Daniel barely had time to brace himself. She crashed into his arms, her small body shaking with sobs. Then, in a voice thick with tears but clear as a bell, she whispered, Daddy Daniel. Daniel's heart nearly burst. He held her close, his own tears falling freely now. Victoria watched them, one hand pressed to her mouth, joy and relief written across her face. In that moment, Daniel understood that sometimes the simplest acts, a song, a kind word, an open heart, could heal wounds deeper than anyone imagined. Later that evening, Daniel and Evan walked home together under a sky painted with sunset colors. The events of the day felt almost dreamlike, but Evan's proud smile kept him grounded in reality. I knew they were wrong about you, Dad, Evan said, bumping his shoulder against Daniel's arm. You always said the truth comes out if you just keep doing what's right. Daniel wrapped an arm around his son's shoulders, overwhelmed with gratitude for the blessing of this boy who'd grown so wise. Together, they headed home, their footsteps steady and sure on the familiar path. Morning sunlight streamed through Brightwell's tall windows as Daniel pushed his cleaning cart down the familiar hallway. The wheels squeaked slightly, a sound that used to embarrass him but now felt like coming home. Employees smiled and waved as he passed, some stopping to pat his shoulder or whisper quick words of support. Welcome back, Mr. Brooks, called Sarah from accounting, her eyes bright with genuine warmth. Daniel nodded, touched by the kindness that surrounded him. It was strange how different everything felt, yet somehow exactly the same. His navy uniform still carried the slight scent of cleaning supplies, but he walked taller now, shoulders straight instead of hunched. The executive wing buzzed with activity as he approached. Through the glass walls, he could see Victoria in her office, already deep in conversation with HR representatives. She caught his eye and motioned for him to come in. Daniel, please join us, Victoria said, standing to greet him. We were just discussing your new position. He set down his cleaning supplies and took a seat, still amazed by how naturally Victoria included him in these conversations now. The HR director, Mrs. Chen, smiled warmly as she spread several papers across the desk. We've created something unique, Victoria explained, her voice carrying an enthusiasm he'd never heard before. A dual role that honors both your practical skills and your gift with Lily. You'll supervise our janitorial staff and serve as a therapeutic mentor for children in similar situations to Lily's. Daniel's throat tightened with emotion. I don't know what to say, he managed. Say yes, Victoria said softly. We need you here, Daniel. Lily needs you. And there's something else. She pulled out another document. We want to offer Evan a full scholarship through our community outreach program. His grades are exceptional, and his volunteer work here has been noticed. Daniel's eyes burned with tears. He quickly blinked away. That would change everything for him, he whispered. Mrs. Chen pushed the contracts forward. Take your time to review everything, she said kindly. Daniel picked up the pen with a slightly trembling hand. I don't need time, he said. I know where I'm meant to be. After signing the papers, Daniel made his way to the small conference room where he used to meet with Lily. She was already there, sitting cross-legged on the floor with her sketchbook open. Her face lit up when she saw him. "Daddy Daniel!" she called out, jumping up to hug him. The name still made his heart skip. So innocent, so pure in its love. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, kneeling down beside her. "What are you drawing today?" Lily showed him her sketch, a group of people holding hands under a bright sun. "It's us," she explained, pointing to each figure. "You and me and Mommy and Evan." Victoria appeared in the doorway, watching them with soft eyes. "She's been talking all morning," she said, "about everything. The birds outside, what she had for breakfast, how excited she was to see you." Daniel smiled, remembering the silent little girl who had first heard his wife's lullaby. "Want to sing together?" he asked Lily. She nodded eagerly, and soon their voices filled the room with the gentle melody. Victoria leaned against the doorframe, her eyes glistening as she watched her daughter come alive through music and love. Later that morning, Daniel called Evan during his break. "Son, I have some news," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Dad, is everything okay?" Evan asked, concern evident in his voice. "Everything's more than okay," Daniel replied. "How would you feel about a full scholarship?" The line went quiet for a moment before Evan's voice cracked. "Are you serious?" "Brightwell's community program. It's yours if you want it." "Dad," Evan's voice wobbled. "We won't have to worry about tuition anymore?" "No more worrying," Daniel confirmed, his own eyes welling up again. "You just focus on those dreams of yours." The morning merged into afternoon, and Daniel found himself sitting in a sunny park with Victoria, Lily, and Evan. They'd spread a checkered blanket on the grass, sharing sandwiches and fruit, while Lily told stories about her morning. Evan sat nearby, strumming gentle chords on his guitar, the same one he and Daniel had repaired together. The music mixed with birdsong and distant laughter from other parkgoers, creating a perfect moment of peace. Victoria watched her daughter chattering animatedly with Daniel about her drawings. "I never thought I'd see her like this again," she said quietly to no one in particular. Daniel looked up, meeting her gaze. "Sometimes hope comes from unexpected places," he said. "Like janitor's closets?" Victoria teased, her eyes twinkling. "Like janitor's closets," Daniel agreed with a laugh. Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Can we sing the lullaby, please?" "Of course we can, sweetheart." As their voices rose together in the afternoon sunshine, Daniel looked around at this unlikely family they'd become. His son, this brave little girl, and her mother who'd fought so hard for truth and justice. His heart felt full enough to burst. The gentle breeze carried their song across the park, wrapping around them like a warm embrace. They were no longer CEO and janitor, no longer divided by status or circumstance. They were simply people who had found healing in each other's presence, brought together by a lullaby and bound by something much stronger than titles could ever be. Lily snuggled closer to Daniel as they finished the song, her small hand finding his. "I'm glad you came back," she whispered. "Me too, sweetheart," he replied softly. "Me too." They continued sharing their lunch in comfortable companionship, the afternoon sun warming their shoulders and hearts alike. The shadow of the board's betrayal felt distant now, replaced by something brighter and more permanent. The knowledge that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as its greatest challenges. Ducks waddled eagerly toward the pond's edge where Daniel, Victoria, Lily, and Evan stood on that warm Saturday morning. The spring breeze carried the scent of blooming cherry blossoms, and sunshine sparkled on the water's surface. Daniel tore off small pieces of bread, handing them to Lily, who giggled as the ducks quacked and scrambled for each morsel. "Not too fast," Daniel reminded her gently. "We want to make sure everyone gets their share." Lily nodded seriously, her face scrunched in concentration as she carefully distributed the bread. "Like this, Daddy Daniel?" she asked, her voice clear and steady, a sound that still amazed him every time he heard it. "That's perfect, sweetheart," he smiled, watching her confidence grow with each successful interaction. Evan stood nearby, showing Victoria how to skip stones across the water's surface. His son had taken to Victoria's presence naturally, especially after she'd helped arrange his scholarship meeting for next week. The morning sun caught the silver streaks in Victoria's dark hair as she laughed at her failed attempt to skip a stone. "You're throwing too hard," Evan explained patiently. "It's all in the wrist, like this." He demonstrated again, and this time Victoria's stone skipped 3 times before sinking. "Finally," she exclaimed, clapping her hands together. "I never had time for things like this before," she admitted quietly to Evan, work always came first. Daniel watched them from the corner of his eye while helping Lily feed the last pieces of bread to the ducks. The past 2 weeks had brought changes he never could have imagined. His new position at Brightwell meant regular hours and better pay, but more importantly, it meant he could be there for both Lily and Evan in meaningful ways. Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Can we sing the song?" she asked, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Please?" "Of course we can," Daniel replied, leading her to a nearby bench. Victoria and Evan joined them, settling in comfortably as Daniel began humming the familiar melody. Lily's voice joined his, still soft but growing stronger each day. The lullaby drifted across the pond, drawing smiles from passing joggers and dog walkers. When they finished, Victoria wiped a tear from her eye. "I never thought I'd hear her sing again," she said, squeezing Daniel's hand gratefully. "You've given us both so much more than just a song." "You've given us plenty, too," Daniel responded, glancing at Evan. "That scholarship opportunity means everything to him." "It's the least I could do," Victoria insisted. "Evan's earned it with his grades and volunteer work, and speaking of which," she turned to face Evan directly, "the board approved my proposal for a permanent student mentorship program. Would you be interested in helping develop it?" Evan's eyes widened. "Really? I mean, yes, absolutely." Daniel watched his son's face light up with excitement and felt a familiar ache in his chest. But this time, it was different. The grief that had weighed him down for so long was slowly transforming into something lighter, something hopeful. His late wife would have loved seeing their son like this, would have appreciated Victoria's kindness and Lily's sweet spirit. Lily had moved to sit between Victoria and Daniel on the bench, her small hands holding onto both of them. "Can we come to the park again tomorrow?" she asked. "We'll see, sweetheart," Victoria smiled, smoothing Lily's hair. "But remember, tomorrow is your special music time with Daddy Daniel." The title still caught Daniel off guard sometimes, but it felt right. He wasn't trying to replace Lily's father, just as Victoria wasn't trying to replace his wife. Instead, they'd formed something unique, a blend of friendship, trust, and shared purpose that helped them all heal. They spent the rest of the morning walking through the park, stopping to admire flowers and watch butterflies. Lily held hands with both Daniel and Victoria, swinging between them and chattering about everything she saw. Evan walked alongside, occasionally taking photos with his phone and showing them to everyone. "Look at this one," he said, displaying a picture of Lily mid-laugh, her face full of joy. "That's frame-worthy." Victoria leaned in to see. "Would you send that to me? I'd love to put it in my office." As they walked back to their cars later that morning, Daniel felt a deep sense of contentment settle over him. The sun was high now, warming their shoulders as Victoria helped Lily into her car seat. "Thank you for today," Victoria said softly to Daniel. "For everything, really. I don't know how to express—" "You don't have to," Daniel assured her. "We're all exactly where we're supposed to be." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "See you Monday?" "Bright and early," he smiled. "Lily's music therapy session at 10? "We'll be there," Victoria confirmed, then turned to Evan. "And I'll email you about the mentorship program planning meeting." They said their goodbyes, and Daniel watched Victoria's car pull away, Lily waving enthusiastically from the back seat. The drive home with Evan was peaceful, filled with comfortable conversation about the morning and plans for the week ahead. That evening, their small apartment felt different, warmer somehow, more alive. Evan retrieved his guitar from its stand while Daniel prepared a simple dinner. The familiar notes of the lullaby floated from Evan's careful finger-picking as Daniel hummed along, stirring pasta on the stove. "You know," Evan said, pausing his playing, "I think Mom would be really happy about all of this." Daniel stopped stirring for a moment, touched by his son's words. "I think you're right," he agreed softly, then resumed humming the lullaby as Evan's guitar joined in again. The music filled their home with gentle warmth, like the last rays of sunset through their kitchen window. Their apartment might have been modest, but in that moment, it felt rich with possibility and hope. The grand lobby of Brightwell Technologies sparkled with holiday magic. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across polished marble floors, and towering Christmas trees flanked the stage, their white lights twinkling like captured stars. Red and gold ornaments caught the glow, creating magical patterns that danced across the walls. Daniel adjusted his tie nervously backstage, his hands slightly trembling. The black suit Victoria had insisted on buying him felt strange after months in his janitor's uniform, but Evan had assured him he looked actually cool, Dad. His son's words brought a small smile to his face even now. Through the curtain, he could hear the pleasant buzz of conversation as employees mingled, their laughter mixing with the soft classical music playing in the background. The scent of cinnamon and pine needles filled the air, along with the warmth of hundreds of bodies gathered in celebration. "Are you ready?" A small hand slipped into his. Daniel looked down to find Lily beaming up at him in her emerald green party dress, her hair tied back with a velvet ribbon that matched perfectly. "I think so, sweetheart," he said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "Are you sure you want to sing with me?" Lily nodded firmly. "I'm not scared anymore, Daddy Daniel." The name still made his heart swell every time she said it. Victoria appeared beside them, elegant in a deep blue evening gown. "The crew says we're on in 5 minutes." She straightened Daniel's tie with practiced hands. "You both look wonderful." "Mom, is Evan in the front row?" Lily bounced on her toes, trying to peek through the curtain. "Right where he promised to be," Victoria assured her. "He wouldn't miss this for anything." Daniel took a deep breath, remembering how far they'd come. Just months ago, he'd been cleaning these same floors late at night, wondering how to make ends meet. Now here he stood, about to perform at the company's biggest event of the year, surrounded by people who had become more than friends. They had become family. The lights dimmed in the lobby, and a hush fell over the crowd as Victoria stepped onto the stage. Her voice carried clearly through the microphone as she welcomed everyone to the annual Christmas Gala. "Tonight, we have a very special performance," she announced, her eyes bright with emotion. "Many of you know the story of how a simple lullaby brought healing to our company. Now, I'd like to invite Daniel Brooks and my daughter Lily to share that song with all of you." Applause filled the lobby as Daniel and Lily walked hand in hand onto the stage. A single spotlight illuminated them, and Daniel could see Evan in the front row, grinning and giving them a thumbs up. The teenage boy looked sharp in his new blazer, pride evident in his posture. The piano introduction began softly, and Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his late wife. She would have loved this moment, her song bringing so much joy to others. When he opened his eyes again, he began to sing the gentle melody that had changed everything. "Sleep, my child, beneath the stars, where dreams take wing and heal our scars." His voice filled the lobby, strong and clear. Then, right on cue, Lily's sweet voice joined his for the second verse. She stood tall beside him, no trace of the silent, frightened child she had once been. "Love surrounds you like the night, keeping watch till morning light." The audience stood completely still, many with tears in their eyes as they witnessed the miracle before them. Victoria watched from the side of the stage, one hand pressed to her heart. The song that had once been stolen by her late husband had found its way home, bringing healing instead of hurt. As the final notes faded away, the lobby erupted in thunderous applause. Lily threw her arms around Daniel's waist while he blinked back tears. Evan bounded onto the stage, unable to contain himself any longer, and Victoria joined them as well. They stood together, a living testament to the power of compassion and second chances. Later, as the gala began winding down, the four of them made their way through the lobby toward the exit. Employees stopped them every few steps to offer congratulations and kind words. Daniel noticed how naturally Evan kept a protective arm around Lily's shoulders, already embracing his role as her big brother. Victoria's heels clicked against the marble floor as they approached the grand entrance. Through the glass doors, they could see fat snowflakes beginning to fall, transforming the world outside into a winter wonderland. "Look," Lily pressed her hands against the glass. "It's snowing." "Perfect timing," Evan said, helping her into her coat. Daniel watched as Victoria wrapped Lily's scarf more securely around her neck, the tender gesture so natural now. Their eyes met over Lily's head, and they shared a smile filled with quiet understanding. They had all found something they hadn't even known they were looking for, a family formed not by blood, but by love, faith, and the healing power of music. As they pushed through the heavy doors, the cold air rushed to meet them, carrying snowflakes that sparkled under the entrance lights. Lily skipped ahead, trying to catch them on her tongue, while Evan kept pace beside her, ready to steady her if she slipped. Daniel and Victoria followed close behind, watching their children play in the falling snow. The night wrapped around them like a soft blanket, full of promise and possibility. Together, they walked into the gentle snowfall, their footprints marking the beginning of their journey as a family bound by choice rather than chance. "The lullaby was just the beginning, wasn't it?" Victoria said softly, her breath visible in the cold air. Daniel nodded, watching as Evan showed Lily how to make the perfect snowball. I think so, but what a beautiful beginning it was. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you enjoyed the story of Daniel Brooks, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.